Hello, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec podcast, where we triple your impact per engineer. As always, I'm your host, Aviv Ben-Yosef, advisor and consultant to tech executives worldwide, and our subject today is In Sync. How much are you? Before we get to that, do you know that I just recently launched a community for execs in tech? It's called the Leading Edge Club, and it's currently free. So I'm waiting to see you there. The link is in the show notes. And really, what reason have you got not to check it out? And now, on to the show. In sync. So something that I hate hearing is how people in the organization, when it comes to the leadership team, are not in sync. And therefore, what you end up doing is sending your people mixed messages. It can be as simple as giving them contrasting directions when you ask them to work on this task or that task, do it like this or do it like that. But it can span the entire length of the organization, as in we decide to interpret values differently. We decide to interpret values differently, or we consider the strategy and we look at it differently. We look at what is the current situation differently. So, for example, one leader might say that the current business results, the sales are going well, even though the numbers are only so-and-so because of the trend, because of this, because of that. And then you talk to another one and they're completely depressed because, no, we didn't hit the results. That's bad. And I think that in general, what we have to have is a lot more sync when it comes to how we communicate things. And if you, as a VP, for example, feel like the CTO or the CEO are stepping on your toes, doing things that get your team to feel like you are not in sync, you owe it to the team, to yourself, and actually to the entire company to speak up, to help ensure that things are in sync. Because if I, as an employee, feel like it doesn't matter what you say, I always have to hear from the CEO again, and only then I know that it's the real deal and that's what I really need to do, you lose your ability to actually lead the team. And if they listen to you, but then they get mixed messages, they might be doing rework, and some people call it failure work. They're not doing things that actually matter. They're doing things again and again. They're not working on the things with the most impact. And again, as I start every single episode, we say we want to triple impact per engineer. That is impossible if you have a culture where we constantly get mixed messages, where you are not in sync. And I'm talking about the entire executive team. So if what I'm saying right now rings a bell, if it hits too close to home, you feel like you're having this, I want you to consider, what do you usually do when this happens? And some people default to either just trying to ignore it and trying to put out the fires themselves. They don't talk to whoever else in the executive team is also involved in this. And I don't believe this can work in the long term. And the second is that we go to the complete overall. We say, no, we have to talk to the CEO. That's not how we talk. That's not how we do things as a team. And I get the sentiment, but think, would you rather to have this come to you from the CEO as a slap on the wrist because you hear that you did something wrong? Or would you rather to have your peer come up to you and talk to you and try and find a solution? This should always be your first option. Don't go ballistic. Don't get to the nuclear option. Talk to your other peers as peers and try and create allies. Try to create alignment, because when you do that, things are first nicer for everyone, and second, if it works, it usually works for a longer term. So that's why I prefer to have that. And some people feel like that doesn't make any sense, especially if you come from a tech background. We tend to stick to directions a lot more than other people. So we're like, no, we said we're going to do that. Why would they do anything else? And then we attribute that to malice. We attributed it to stupidity. No, we're just people. And some people are not great at following directions or following guidelines, or have to have things be really clear to them. People are not compilers. Just because you agreed on something doesn't mean they really understood what you agreed on, doesn't mean they remember it. Sometimes it means you have to work on it. Don't assume that the other party is damaged. Just go to them, talk to them as peers, and try and solve it. If that doesn't work repeatedly, okay, you can escalate, of course, but you're going to have a much easier career and a much nicer one, and probably a more impactful one, if you default to working with your peers as peers. And then you can create a real synchronization across the executive team and do things a lot faster. And that's at least partly how we drive a higher impact per engineer. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't yet, do subscribe to my newsletter. It's the best newsletter online for tech execs. And again, do check out the Leading Edge Club, my new community for executives in tech. Link in the show notes. Thank you. Talk soon.